Once you talk about eschatology, which I'd never heard before, so I had to look that up. So if you would, given that it's basically religion but in the extreme, walk people through what eschatology is, why you use that word instead of just saying religion, and then why you think
Right.
that we're never going to understand what's playing out right now unless we understand that.
Right. So eschatology comes from the Greek word eschaton, which means the end. So eschatology literally means the study of the end times. But what it really means is your understanding of how the world ends, or how humans can become unified with God. And different religions have different eschatologies. So that's the word eschatology. And as you point out, it's usually extremists who embrace eschatology. But the problem with eschatology is that it's very, very powerful, because as humans, there's always three questions burning inside our hearts. The first question is, where do we come from? The second question is, what are we doing here? The third question is, where are we going? And eschatology answers all three questions to the satisfaction of the human heart. And so that's what galvanizes, energizes religious extremists into action. If you look at eschatology, the most passionate people right now in America are people called Christian Zionists. All right, so evangelicals are about a quarter of the American population, and then among the evangelicals, there are these very passionate people who are only a minority, okay, but they're Christian Zionists, and the technical term for them is premillennial dispensationalists. And so what they believe is that the world is theological, meaning that God has a divine plan that he voiced in the Bible. So if you read the Bible properly, it will tell you where the world is going and how it will end. And so what they believe is that God has a divine plan. If you have faith in God, what you do is you accelerate the plan. Okay? You cannot defy the will of God, but what you can do is accelerate his plan. And so these Christian Zionists believe that Jesus will return, but certain conditions have to be met before Jesus can return. So the first condition that needs to be met is that Israel needs to be reconstituted as a nation. Why? Because the Jews are God's chosen people, and God has a covenant with the Jews, which is the land of Israel that God promised Abraham, their ancestor. Okay, so that's the first condition that needs to be met. Second condition that needs to be met is the Jews need to build Solomon's temple, the third temple. And then the Jewish diaspora have to return to Israel. They all have to return. Okay, you can't be living in the United States. You have to go back to Israel. And then there has to be a war of Gog and Magog. And then the Antichrist will emerge to lead the Jews, to threaten the Jews. Sorry.
I was going to say, wait, hold what?
Yeah. Sorry. It's very confusing because these eschatologies have different details. Okay. But then, when the Antichrist is most threatening the existence of Israel, then Jesus will return to save the Jews. And when he returns, Christians will be raptured up into heaven. Okay, so you're a Christian, you really believe in Jesus. When he returns, you're going directly to heaven. But if you're not a Christian, then you're going to suffer. Then Jesus will institute something called the millennium, 1,000 years of eternal peace, where Jesus rules the world. And at the end of the millennium is the day of judgment, where he will judge you a good person or a bad person. If you're a good person, you'll live forever. If you're a bad person, you'll burn in hell forever. Okay, so that's what these Christian Zionists believe. It's a very simplified version, but as you can see, it's a very compelling story of what you should be doing, of how you can accelerate the coming of heaven onto earth. And unfortunately, these Christian Zionists are embedded in the very fabric of American political life. So I'll give you an example where Peter Hegseth is a Christian Zionist. He if you just he has these crusader tattoos on his body. He's talked about rebuilding the third temple. Okay, and why that's an issue is the site where they want to build the third temple is where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is. So you would need to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque first in order to build the third temple. So the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in the Islamic world. Only Mecca and Medina are more holy. And the Al-Aqsa Mosque is apparently where Muhammad ascended to heaven. And for the longest time, Al-Aqsa Mosque was actually controlled by Jordan. And so only Muslims are allowed actually in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But what's been happening these past few days is that the Israelis have shut off access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And there are rumors that that the Israelis might do a controlled demolition of Al-Aqsa Mosque and blame it on the Iranians.